Good morning.
Hello, Baxter.
Everyone can understand me? Yes? So I will try to speak slower so that it will be easier to know what I'm trying to say. I'm from the United States. I'm from North Carolina, which is on the East Coast. Everyone know where that is? Yes? Okay, cool. So I'm considering this session, come on in. I started early. So I'm considering this session to be a bit more informal and a bit more of us just talking. And I'll share with you a bit about what I do and how I work. And maybe it will give you some ideas on ways in which you can help your business and your extension development. Just to give me an idea, how many of you write extensions or components, modules, plugins, things like that? Okay, great. How many of you have a business of some kind that you're involved in? Okay, great. And I guess you're here because you want to figure out maybe better strategies for deploying your applications or a different way in which you can do things, or maybe just kind of take a peek and see how somebody else does things. To give you an idea, I'm going to sit. Is that cool? Is everyone okay? I'm just going to... I like to be a little more casual, if that's all right. So, to give you a little bit more idea, I told you my name is David. I am from the States. I'm married, and I have 3 kids. So they are 8, 6, and 3 years old. And my wife is awesome because I travel like this a lot of the time, and she stays home with 3 very small kids. So I get home and she's like, so she's very great for letting me travel like I do. So I travel for Joomla as the community manager, and I travel all over speaking about Joomla and sharing and getting people involved in Joomla, as well as hearing kind of what struggles you have and how Joomla can be better for you. I'm also on the production leadership team. How many of you know what that is? Anyone? Couple? So the production leadership team is a group of us volunteers in Joomla that manage the different versions of Joomla that get released. We don't write all the code. We just try to help make sure things get released on time. I'm also part of the Joomla Framework Maintainers group. Anybody know what the Joomla Framework is? Yeah? Awesome. Usually when I ask that question, no one understands. Joomla Framework? No, what is that? So I'm glad to see that some of you know what the Joomla Framework is. And we're working on trying to make that a little bit more recognized because it really is quite powerful in what you can do with it. So I'm part of that group as well. So the bottom line, the takeaway is that I do a lot with coding and I do a lot with deployment of code. So I can talk on any different type of deployment methodology that you'd like, and I'd really love to hear from you what you'd be most interested in seeing or learning. How many of you are familiar with Jenkins as a build system? Okay, a couple of you. How many are familiar with Travis for continuous integration? Okay. How many of you simply write the code and then have to figure out how to get it to somewhere where people can buy it and download it? Is that what you guys do? Tell me where you're at. I'm going to make you talk to me. Someone tell me what you do. Yeah.
So I'm working with Adrian I'm working on SketchUp and he's working on IT menu. And we actually build our own tools so that we can easily push our code into packages that can be just uploaded on our website easily, and so that it's kind of automated so that we don't have to do
so you do have some automation involved there.
Yeah, we do.
Excellent. Yes. How many of you, so that brings up a good point. How many of you use version control?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Excellent. So everybody's comfortable using version control. Yes? Okay. Do you use Git or something else? Git? Yes. It's the most popular, right? Yes. We use two. We use both GitHub for free stuff, and then we use Bitbucket for stuff that we don't want to be publicly available because you get private repos for free with Bitbucket. So we use that. How many of you follow Git flow methodology in your Git repository structure? Exactly, yes. Pushing to a staging branch, and then your master branch is always a releasable branch. Yes? Is that what everyone does? Okay. If I don't know when you have a question, I can't answer your question for you. So if you have a question about something I say, stop me, and I can be clearer, or I can go into more detail so that you get something from this session. Okay? Is that good? Seems fair, yeah? Okay. So we do Git flow both for Joomla and then with my own stuff as well. And what that means is that every new feature or every bug fix, if it's a hot fix, we branch off of staging and then go directly into master. And so what we do with our code deployment is we will pull from staging, commit our work, push to staging. Staging is then triggers Jenkins, which will run our automated test suites. And then from our automated test suites, if those all pass successfully, then on every 30 minutes, it will merge to master, meaning a new releasable version. But we won't release a version. Our master branch is just releasable, meaning we can release at any time from master, but we don't until we have tagged a new release. Does that make sense? Okay. So I can show you my setup, or I can take questions from you. What would you be more interested in seeing? Do you want to see the things that I work with, the tools that I use? Okay. What editor do you guys use for writing your code in? I'll make it easy. Yes or no questions. How many of you use PHP Storm? Okay. How many of you use Sublime Text? Oh, yes! That's the best. I use Sublime Text. I also use PHP Storm, but I prefer Sublime Text. Most of you did not raise your hands, so now you have to, unfortunately, tell me what it is you do use. How many use Dreamweaver? Okay, a couple. How many of you use Eclipse? Yes, okay, all right. Aptana? As well. It's the same, yes? Which also means NetBeans, yes? Those three are all pretty much the same, NetBeans, yeah? Notepad++. You haven't raised your hand yet. I don't know what you use.
I'm most developer.
Easy answer. Okay. So I use Sublime Text. I can show you kind of what I do. Okay, so let's see here. This is an inside scoop. I haven't shown many people the way that I set up my workflow and the things that I do. So you are the privileged few to see exactly how I do what I do. And anything you see that you're not supposed to see, shh. Okay, so everyone has sites folder, yes? Okay, so these are where all of my localhost sites are. I use Homebrew. Everybody familiar with Homebrew? Well, I guess not for XAMPP would be a Windows type of solution. I just run it native on my machine. So Apache, MySQL, PHP. Yes? How many of you use Mac? Okay. Windows? All right. And Linux? Yeah. I dual boot. This is Mac and Ubuntu, but I'm using Mac right now. So let's see. If we look... Okay, so right now, I am running PHP. Can you guys see that okay? Yes? PHP 5.4, yeah? PHP 5.3, yeah? Five. So what I have set up on my machine is the ability to quickly switch between any PHP version so that I can test my code against multiple versions of PHP. Very important, yes? Because most people may not be running the latest, like 5.5. They'll be running 5.3 or maybe 5.4. I won't even test 5.2, okay? Because no one should be using 5.2. So this is an app that I'm in the middle of testing and working on. It has an autocall in it, and so it's throwing an error on PHP 5.5. So that's why you see it popping up. Okay. And so, okay. So I wrote a little script, and anything, so here's the thing. You guys are the lucky few, okay? Anything that we talk about here, anything that I share with you that you want, you just have to let me know, and I'll put it somewhere and give you an access to it, okay? So I have a couple of scripts in my bash file. Familiar with bash, yes? Familiar in my bash file to let me do that quick PHP switching. And basically it just takes Homebrew and it unlinks from my, it's like a symlink, right? It unlinks one symlink and then relinks a different symlink in place so I can run multiple off of the same machine at the same time. And so I can show that later if you're interested. But any of the things that I show you, if you see it and you want to know about it or you want it, you just have to let me know and we'll figure out some way to get it to you, okay? That's the benefit of being in this session right here. No one else in the world gets that but you guys, okay? Which means you can't share it. This is non-GPL. No. And alternatively, the reason I don't want you to share it is because it may be really bad and no one else should know that I'm doing such bad stuff. Only you guys. And if you think I should be doing it better, let me know, okay? I expect you to tell me if it should be done differently. Okay, so here's my sites folder. Anything that I run off of localhost is going to come into one of these folders right here. One thing that I'll typically do when I start a project, I have a bash script, okay, and I called it Spark just because that's what I wanted to call it. And I specify a flag for a folder, and then I can put in a folder name. So I can say, give it a second. And now if I go to my browser, give it a second, and it gives me a new version of Joomla 3. Already loaded up, ready to go. I can log into the admin panel, and I'm good to go immediately. Immediate deployment of a Joomla site on my local machine. It's nothing really fancy. It's nothing hard about it. But it makes it very quick, right, to launch a new site. So then if I go back into my folder structure, I've got JoomlaDay Poland. Okay. So what that does is it goes off of in here. So I can specify actually a bunch of different versions. So I can say and I can launch a version of Joomla 2.5 or launch a version of WordPress WP. And it will launch up a new site with whatever I specify in. Nothing super fancy, but it's a nice little quick tool to get you started. How many of you use symlinking within your folder structure? So how many of you use something like Ant or, oh, what's the other one, Grunt? Maybe it's not Grunt then. No, it's just a build system. Yeah? Yeah, it's a node-based, right? Is that the one node-based? Yes. So what I've found when I'm developing extensions, particularly a component or a module or plugin, something simple, that I don't normally need a full build system like that. I simply want something a little bit faster. So the fastest way to do it would be with a symlink. So the way that I usually set it up is I'll create a basic extension, the structure, just enough to be discoverable, because then I can go to the admin panel, I can discover that extension, yeah? And then what I'll do is I'll delete the files, I'll move them to my Git folder. And my Git folder is located within my sites folder. You don't have to do it that way. I choose to. So then what I do is I have all of my committable code within these folders here. So from any one of these, I can do a git push, git pull, that type of stuff. And then what I'll symlink is from the sites component folder into my Git folder. Make sense? Yeah? So that when I'm in Sublime Text, okay. So this is a CRM extension that we develop and release, which we integrate pretty deeply with AC mailing. You said AC mailing or ACY? AC? AC mailing, okay. So I need to know that because we're telling people all the time to use it. So anyway, what we have then is all of these folders are within my Git structure, right? And if you use Sublime Text, do you use the Git directly from within Sublime? Okay, so it's kind of nice. So I never have to actually leave, and we'll see if that'll actually run those commands. And then you can actually make your changes. So in fact, let me actually open a different project. Okay, so yeah, you see. Let's see here. I want one that I can't mess anything up on. We could do a new one. Yeah? All right. Let's create a new one real quick. Ugh. This is so boring watching people code, yeah? Or no? Do you guys like it? Uh-oh. It's empty. All right. So then if I go under my Git folder. All right. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my, let's just close that. Let's do a new one. Add a folder. Git. JoomlaDay Poland. All right. What are we going to call this? So what I'm going to do is git add. I can add just all files or particular ones, including untracked. Then I enter my commit message. And then I push it. And I'm keeping track down here of everything that's happening. So then I come here. And there it is. Okay? Nothing to it. Piece of cake. Yeah? So then what I'm probably going to do is let's create some basic structure in here. So we're going to call oops. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to go into the Joomla site that I just created. And then actually, where should I put this? Oh, so I'm going to link in 2 repositories. Everybody good with symlinks? Yeah? So I'm going to symlink in. Mark Brindley. Origin, destination. That's correct order, yes? All right. Same thing again, but I'm going to do okay. So now sites, data Poland, components. There you go. Right? It's all good? Yeah? So now I can make changes and I'll see it in live time on my local machine, right? And then if they look right, I can just commit direct from there because I'm not having to edit 2 sets of files. And that's kind of handy. Okay?
Can you link it to several projects at the same time? Like we have Joomla 1.5, Joomla 2.5?
Yes. So normally what I do, and it might show here in my list of sites, yeah, so there's Creamery 3.0, and then Creamery 2.5. So I can set up multiple versions of a localhost site using that quick little script, and then I can symlink into each of those. So as long as your extension is meant to run on the multiple versions, then yeah, then you can test them across multiple, all in one space. So that's pretty handy. Thank you for asking a question. I really want to make it interactive. So any other questions from anybody else on stuff that I'm doing so far? No? Is this helpful? Is this something interesting? Oh, one little trick which I like. Everybody knows about using the double exclamation point or the double bang on the command line? Anyone? No? Okay, so if you run a command and it tells you that you have to run it as sudo, or you know you have to run it as sudo instead, you can actually use a double bang. Sudo, so put whatever you want to do and then the double exclamation, and it will run the previous command that you just did again with whatever you have in front. So then you can do sudo and double exclamation, and it'll run the exact same command that I had just done, but it'll do it as with that at the front of it. Handy little trick in case it saves you some typing. And for me, before I did that, I was forever going to my very long line like this, and then either holding this down and going back, or trying to skip all the way to the beginning to type in sudo before that. That's a nuisance. So don't forget, use a double exclamation point. It'll save you some time. Okay? That one is completely free. Okay. Oh, and Command K clears your screen? Yeah? Okay. So we have a couple of things. Let me show you. Let's see here. Okay, so this is the bash script that actually will do the install of the various local versions. Okay, so you'll see that. I mean, it's nothing super special. We had the config file that's going to push out, things like that. No big deal. Okay, So if we look back at the extension, what we have in our folder structure, we have a component. We might have a couple modules, a couple plugins, yeah? Well, what we need to do is we need to zip all of those up and then zip the whole thing up, and then we need to do something with that zip, right? Well, the quickest way to do, and we don't want any of the Git stuff, right? Because we're coming from a Git repo, so I don't want the .git folder, but I want everything else. So I wrote a script that would what it does is it goes into the folder, and then it finds everything that's not in the .git folder, and then it quietly zips it all up, or it moves it technically. It copies it into a new location, into a temp location, and then I go through and I will change my XML. So to give you an idea of how this runs, from command line, I'd say deploy Creamery 3.2. Okay, so I tag it right there. And what that will do then is it runs that bash script which will go into my XMLs. It'll find the Creamery version tag. It will then replace that with whatever I've put in a command line as the flag. And then it's going to take them and it's going to, for every folder, it's going to loop through the folders. It's going to zip them up and remove the original folder. So now I just have the zips. And then when that's all done, it's going to zip the entire folder up into my package folder. And then from there, I'm going to remove the folder. And then right here, I move it into another local temp directory in Google Drive where it'll be a backed up. We used to use Dropbox, and we switched to Google Drive. And then I deleted it from this slide here. But then the next step was to do an SCP up to a server. So it would actually move it direct from my local machine directly into the products folder on the server. That's how we did things for almost a full year. And it worked really well because then whenever we were done, we would commit, we were ready to deploy, we go to command line, we say deploy Creamery, version number, and it's good, right? Automated that entire process for us. And then we started using GitHub and Bitbucket a lot more for stuff. And we started using the hooks. So how many of you use GitHub or Bitbucket hooks in your work? No? Okay, this is where it gets really nice. Do you guys use it? Okay. You what?
We have our own stuff.
You have your own stuff. Have anybody used GitLab? No? That's a cool tool if you want to run GitHub but you want to do it privately or in your own organization on your own server. You can set up GitLab. So what we do with GitHub hooks is every time that we have, and we do the same type of methodology that Joomla does because I worked on it there and it worked really well, so I implemented it for my own stuff also. And the idea was that every time that we commit to a staging branch, we have Jenkins run, or Travis. And if you guys want to see what that looks like, so Travis CI, continuous integration, can be plugged into GitHub directly, and Joomla uses this. And I don't know if we can find the Joomla folder specifically, but every time that a commit is made, you can have a hook in your GitHub repository to fire Travis, or to make Travis run. And what Travis does then is it runs your unit tests, it clones it, it pulls it, it puts in all the dependencies that you need, and then it builds through all of your unit tests. It tests all how many of you use unit tests in your code? Thank you. Thank you. It's so important that you do unit testing because you never know what you're going to break when you're fixing something over here. And I've done it so many times because I would fix this and I think, okay, that piece works great. And because I fixed that piece and changed that line of code, then 10 more things over here now are not working anymore. So it's unit testing will make sure that when you fix this, you haven't broken 10 other things somewhere else. It's really important to do. And it's something that's not very hard to learn. In fact, what's the one that I'm recommending right now? We started to put it into Joomla because I think it will be easier for people to build tests on. Yeah, so you can see, here we can go. So it will, on every commit, it runs and it will test that. So it downloads Composer, it creates the database, it's going to inject into the database all the stuff we need. Now this stuff right here is where it's actually running all of the different unit tests on each of the different lines. So it says it took 2 minutes, it's incomplete because there were skipped or risky tests. There was almost 6,000 tests that it ran with almost 10,000 assertions, and it skipped 150. But it exited with a 0, meaning everything is fine. If you go at some point to build.joomla.org, you can actually get to this. This is where you can see all of the builds for Joomla that are running. This is Jenkins. It's free open source technology that you can download and set up on your server. And this is what we use now for packaging everything. This is no longer we do it from command line. Instead, we use Jenkins to do it. And Jenkins works very well to package everything up. We can go and look at a particular build. And you can see the build information, so what it's going to be building. You can see the console output from the build. So you'll see that it was notified by, this is doing an external hook. It fetches changes from 2 remote repositories. It grabs the tags, checks all the different branches to see what's there. See, because it checks the branches on every time that Jenkins runs to see if new stuff has been added to a new branch, and will automatically begin monitoring that branch as well. Again, we run our own PHP unit tests and then build successful on ours. So this is where we, right here, pushing ahead to master branch. And this is all, I'm not logged in right now, so anyone can see this. Everyone can get to this, build.joomla.org, and you can see exactly what happens every single time that we have a commit. Yes? You want to see it? Yes. Yeah, it's hot. Yes, it's an extension of Jenkins that you can set up. What it does is a coverage breakdown by file of your unit tests and lines of code that are covered. Hang on, why is it? Let me see. Here we go. So what this tells you, actually, if you go into these on Joomla and you look, you will see that we do not have very good unit coverage on the CMS. The framework has really good unit test coverage. The actual Joomla CMS, because we built it originally before we really started working with unit tests very much, now there's not very, very good test coverage on a lot of classes. But then you can actually go into a single one even farther and see the specifics on that particular file. Trying to get where we get the actual... Can't find the link off the top of my head, but you can actually go in there and you can view exact line. There we go. Methods, statements, and totals. So you can actually go in and see by that class every function, which function has been covered and which function has not been covered by unit testing. So it's a pretty handy tool. And it's something you can, again, it's free. You just plug it right into Jenkins. So you can see these are the versions that we're tracking with our Git builds in Jenkins. So staging to master is what we're tracking. So if it passes the test successfully, then it will merge it and push it to master. So master would then be again releasable. And then we can just tag the release. To give you an idea of how this can work in another environment, we have it set up with the Jenkins that we're running for our stuff so that whenever we push, it does a bunch of things. First of all, it notifies our Slack chat that a version has been built, which is kind of handy. Saurav mentioned this in the beginning about Slack. Nice little program that you can use for instant messaging, but it allows you to have external services come into your chat as well. So we have a Jenkins bot, and we have a GitHub bot, and we have a Bitbucket bot. And those bots will then post into like a developer chat or into just a build chat. I can show you. Why not? If it will connect.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you can see, actually, we've got some unread messages. So in our Git chat, you can see that this is where stuff has been pushed via Git, what the repo and the branch and the commit message, and this is all done straight by Bitbucket. So then when you get in the morning to work and you want to see what's been going on, you can go back and look through the chat messages. It's just a little bit easier. I mean, you can go do it at Bitbucket if you wanted to, but you can do it here as well. And then the build script will run every time. So build from head, success after 21 seconds. So our build for our stuff is much faster build time than the stuff for Joomla core because we're not having to test quite as many unit tests or as many lines of code as Joomla does. So you see that? Okay. So let's see here. Please. Doesn't want to close. Okay. Yes. So when we run ours, it will notify the chat that we've had a commit. If that commits against master, then Jenkins gets fired because we have a hook in our GitHub or Bitbucket that will fire and tell our Jenkins, hey, do something. Here's the latest information. Jenkins will take that information, will pull out the copy, will test the unit tests. If everything is passing, then what it does is it actually builds out the stuff. So the same type of stuff that I did with the command line and that bash script, ripping out the .git. With ours, what we're doing is we use Composer. Are you guys familiar with Composer? Packagist? Yes? So our stuff, we have a vendor file that has all of our vendors in it, but we don't commit that. Okay, right? You never commit that into your GitHub or your Bitbucket because that's third party and it could change at any time. You don't have that in your repo, right? So the way that we have it set up with our Jenkins is that when it's pushed against master and we run our unit tests, then what we do is we will instantiate Composer. We will do a Composer install, which pulls everything in. And this is all within a virtual machine inside Jenkins. So it creates a full site with Jenkins and everything built into, or with Composer and all the packages built into it. Then Jenkins goes through all those packages and deletes all the readmes and the documentation, the demos, stuff like that, because it's a releasable product. We don't need all of that stuff. We want it as thin and light as possible. So then we have nothing but the vendor classes themselves. And then Jenkins will zip the entire thing up. And then Jenkins connects through SSH remote to whatever server is going to be deployed upon, and it moves it to that server. Make sense? And then on the server side, when something falls into that folder, then it actually notifies the client via their admin panel that a new version is available. And if they have it set up for automatic updates, then when it hits that folder on the server, notifies the client machine. And if the client machine has auto updates set up, then it automatically downloads it, installs it, and they're on the latest release. So what happens then for us now is we have a local copy of all of our stuff. We decide that it's time to release the next version. We say commit to staging, merge to master, tag 3.1. What that does then is the minute we hit the enter key on that, it runs all of that stuff, pushes all up to the server, notifies the client, updates their machine, and within 15 minutes, everyone around the world that is set up for auto update has received the latest version based off of what we've just committed. That is where automated deployment makes life so much fun. Because now it's no longer you have to do every single piece and it takes you half a day to release a new version. We can release a new version and push it out to thousands of people around the world in 15 minutes. And then as we grow, it's 100,000 and then 1 million. So thank you so much. So you guys, what questions do you have? What can I show you, or what do you not want to know about, or do you want me just to leave? Okay.